Hey everyone, it's Will, GamerDad, with another video for you. So first off, I'd like to give a shout out to one of my YouTube members, Isaiah. Thanks for your support. Now in this video, we're actually going to show the 4 different bosses at each of the floors 8, 12, 16, and 20. I did upload a video of my run through of the very first time from floors 1 to 4, and so the boss fight for floor 4 will be in that video. Now, a couple of things to note before we go into the boss fights themselves. Once you hit floor 5, you'll run into different men. One's the younger man who sells items or runes that you can buy, and the other older gentleman is the one that you can upgrade certain runes by burning lower quality runes. Now, I highly recommend doing that, especially in the higher levels, because you'll need everything you have in order to really beat these levels. Now, the very first time is going to be a lot harder. As you progress through running through the dungeons over and over again, you'll be able to buy charms, which are permanent features and additions into your team, such that it'll give you buffs when you run right in, so that your future runs will be a little bit easier. In this case, being that all these fights are from my very first run all in a row, they're going to be a lot tougher. So first of all, I highly recommend using a waning orb if you have it right before the boss. What that does is apply a 4-turn triple debuff, which is power, int, and speed. After which you are to, depending on the number of levels of your characters, you can equip as many powerful runes, both for the moveset as well as for the stats. And so, things I would recommend looking for if you are finding them either in the shop or in the wild through the different sparkles and chests. Definitely stats like int up, for example, for your mages if you're using a mage type unit. Power up, very similar to power type badges. And for example, you really want to eventually go for those 3-star gold rune moves, and you'll want to upgrade them through the gray older gentleman to the +5, because +5 is the highest stats available. Other things you want to look for are things like pain touch, which applies pain, for example, poison touch, which applies poison, and enhanced damage or strengthen when pain and poison. Very similar to the grass system, you really want to enhance your team as much as powerful. Now, I will say I didn't choose any VC in. I figured that, honestly speaking, I'm just going to attack it straight out and try to use debuffs as possible. Usually if the fight is a little bit shorter, then you'll be no problem. However, a lot of these fights felt very difficult, only because your AF obviously doesn't last very long. Now, keep in mind that my team has 1 defense, 1 attack, 1 technique, and 1 mage. If you put in a support instead of a mage, I believe you'll have access to zones. And so, obviously, you can actually now build a team that has 1 of each attribute, but all of the same weapon type, so that if you find, for example, a slash strike stance or anything like that, or pierce strike stance, you can make use of that. Now, that is RNG dependent. Of course, the shops are RNG dependent as well. You can use restock tickets to kind of refresh the inventory at a shop. However, no guarantees that you'll find the one you want. So I would recommend definitely just to kind of build an all balanced team and just kind of go for the grass that you need as well. A couple of other things to note. Certainly you want to come into the battle with a half bar AF if possible, and in order to do that, you can either fight through the mobs manually, or if you can get those vow of invincibility at the higher levels, and if you enhance them enough times up to +5, the gold version gives up to 30% AF after each victory win. And then if you equip another lesser one and put that at +5, you'll essentially have a half AF after each mob fight and up to the boss fight itself. And so I would highly recommend that, because it'll make your journey through the dungeons much easier. If you get AF every round, it's kind of like having Melissa every fight for the mobs. It does a lot of wonders. Other things to look for, obviously, is to apply buffs and debuffs on yourself as well as the enemy. So dual debuff if possible. Certain moves, I believe, will have those. And later on, Iska, being a technique user, was able to find a slash move, that single target that actually has both power and int up. And at the highest levels, when you upgrade it to +5, I believe you can get up to 40% int and power up. Very significant given the fact that we're limited in DPS. You can see my setup. At the higher levels, you'll have all those rune slots. I know, it's getting so used to that. And I would highly recommend switching those runes before your mob fights and into the boss fight, because during the farming ones, you probably want to be farming things like XP, which is the rapid growth, or those I guess, Azure points, which you can use to buy things. You'll be using the Blessed in order to get more of those points to shop and upgrade the stores. And so you'll unequip all those and put all your most powerful runes on your enemies to really power up the team. Okay, so now we're at the really tough fights, which are, this is level 16. Not only are you taking lots of hits and the enemy kicks you to the back of 2 random units, it also, Red Dawn also establishes Fire Zone. Now, keep in mind that obviously if you had fought Red Dawn in the most recent overworld in Zol Plains, it is an optional boss. Back in the day, very difficult. Nowadays, any one unit could probably take it down. So this one has a unique mechanic. You want to kill off that blue bar within the specified number of turns. I did not let it expire. And if you are able to bring it down, you'll Red Dawn will break its own zone such that you don't have to deal with Fire Zone. Remember that Fire Zone will decrease your wind attacks by 50% and increase its own fire attacks by 50%. And so in order to minimize damage against you, obviously if you have access to a defensive unit such as AS Hismina being our tank for this fight or for these fights, you can actually get moves later on that gets dual buff, like as in you know, kind of like a type and physical resistance, mini Aurora Force or mini type shield kind of thing. I didn't find anything higher than plus 20, plus 10, 20 in terms of shielding. And of course, if you pay the upgrade cost with the runes and the upgrade man, then you could probably have a more powerful thing. In this case, you can see that without any shields, and I didn't have all the moves, obviously, because it's RNG dependent, you're taking a crap load of damage, and some of these battles were really ugly. One other thing to note, you can actually reset the fight just like most fights. So if you're losing, just hard reset the game, soft reset the game. So just flick the game away, and then go back into the fight. You're able to kind of start off fresh and renewed and kind of give it a different strategy if you need to. Remember that if you're really having a lot of tough time, you can VC in back and forth depending on your units and what kind of VCs they have. That will help you win, but like I said, in this case they're forcing us to VC anyways because they're kicking us to the back repeatedly, 2 units. So the first time with the bar, note that it's counting down quite quickly. We had an AF and we could cancel it that way. If you have powerful enough units, like Suzette, for example, Northern Style is an attack type unit, she can one-shot some of those bars. And as I said, if you can apply Pain, Poison, and then enhance it with those Strengthen when Poison type of runes, you're going to do a lot of damage. But you can clearly see that even with all of that, you're taking a lot of damage because the enemy is also putting dual debuffs on you. Remember that you don't have proficiency debuff Rasta here in this fight. And so, yeah. So I went and if you need some extra defense, obviously you can equip like things like endurance runes, spirit runes, or in the case of having, like I said, a tank, his mana takes a lot less damage than everyone else. So you can see some of the stats and rune equipments I have. And like I said, try to buy the max upgrades when you find a move you like, because obviously this is preferential as well. You have to decide which moves you like the most. And otherwise, if you want to save some of those Arcana flares or those blue flares, then you can do so. The whole point is, don't be too cheap. If you're too cheap, you're going to get slaughtered. Alright, so on the 20th floor, you have the option of fighting or not fighting this boss. Now, I don't know what the point is if you warp out and don't fight it, but it does allow you to collect all the chests and everything else before you fight this boss. So let me know in the comments below if you know what happens if you warp out as opposed to fighting the boss. You don't get any XP or anything like that because it's the last boss anyways, but I decided to beat it because, hey, we're here to show you guys what it's like to fight this. Yeah, so again, Waning Orb is a must-have. If you don't have Waning Orbs, you're going to be in trouble. If you only find one here and there, make sure you only use it in the later stages. I would say floor 4 and floor 8, you probably still don't really need it, although floor 8, you might even want to start using it. And depending on your RNG and your luck, you will have enough or find one within each of the 3 floors before heading to the 4th boss fight. This one's a tough one. Obviously, even with the dual or triple debuff, we are taking a significant amount of damage. Note that in the first turn, it actually drains your AF bar too, so you can't even do a first turn AF. So that kind of sucks. Other than that, facing a lot of AoEs and I guess at this move, it removes all buffs and debuffs, so you have to reapply things as well if you need to. Now, I would say that if you had a support unit, I'm sure you'll have a little bit better time in terms of applying things like Break, which my friend says he can do with his support units, or probably other things like that. In my case, I'm going with a traditional kind of more offensively minded team, and so I don't even have a healer. I would say that unless you're seriously in trouble, I mean, you can opt to bring a support which will duel as a healer, or you can even equip some healing moves if you have those. Emergency aid kind of sucks at this level, but you do start with it, and it is an XS extra small heal. Keep in mind that I actually do have a move equipped on Iska AS that allows you to heal 450 while hitting if you really needed to. So you can see that in action if I needed it. Now this really surprised me. After killing it, and I already lost my main DPS attack form normal style Suzette, it actually heals a little bit, and you have 3 turns to kill it or not. But thank goodness my high-end magic user AS Saki with a +5 Hellfire Jutsu level 2 with a 2-star version was able to do enough damage to kill the boss within 3 turns. Now, of course, level 3s are better, but you know, it's RNG like I said, and just upgrade what you need. Don't be too cheap, and then you'll get some rewards and be able to get those OOP arts appraised. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.